Listen to me, because this is the core of it all. You can't spot a lie until you know the truth. That's not some philosophical nonsense, it's the fundamental principle of interrogation. Forget what you've seen in the movies about liars constantly looking away or sweating profusely. Those are signs of someone who's nervous, not necessarily someone who's lying. The real secret is to first establish a baseline. Think of it like this. Before you can find a foreign object in a room, you need to know what's supposed to be in that room. The baseline is the subject's normal, everyday, comfortable state. It's how they act when they're telling the truth, when there's no pressure, when they're just being themselves. Let me tell you about a case I worked on with a detective named Marcus. He was convinced a suspect, a man we'll call Sam, was lying about his whereabouts. Sam was a calm, collected guy who ran a small electronics shop. When Marcus asked him about his alibi, Sam's story was smooth as silk. But Marcus had spent the first 10 minutes of their chat just asking about Sam's family, his hobbies, his favorite sports teams, all of it completely unrelated to the case. He was establishing the baseline. He learned that when Sam was comfortable, he would often tap his fingers on the table, a nervous but normal habit for him. When Marcus finally hit him with the tough questions, Sam's tapping stopped dead. He went rigid. The lie wasn't in what he said, it was in the sudden cessation of a normal, habitual behavior. Have you ever noticed yourself or someone else doing a repetitive motion like tapping a pen or fiddling with a ring when they're relaxed? Pay attention to that because its absence can be just as telling as its presence. Establishing this baseline isn't a magic trick, it's a discipline. It's about being a silent observer before you become a questioner. In a real interrogation, this is the part where you build rapport. You ask open-ended, non-threatening questions. Tell me about your job, or how long have you lived in this town? These questions have no right or wrong answers, and they allow the person to relax and just talk. This is where you're not listening for the content of their words, but for the container. You're watching their body language, their hand gestures, their eye movements. Do their eyes dart around when they're thinking of a comfortable memory, or do they stay focused? When they're relaxed, do they lean forward or back in their chair? Take all of this in, catalog it. Consider this. You're at a dinner party and you ask someone about their recent vacation. They start talking, and as they do, you see their hands gesturing freely, their body is open, and their voice is at a normal, steady pace. You're watching their true self. The next week, you ask them about a project they're working on, and you sense a subtle shift. Their shoulders tense up, their hands are clenched in their lap, and they're speaking just a little bit faster than before. You've just witnessed a deviation from their baseline. You haven't caught a lie yet, but you've found a point of stress, and that's where you start to dig. This is the difference between a casual conversation and an active investigation. Now, you have a baseline. You know what normal looks and sounds like for this person. The next step is knowing what to look for when that normal breaks. This is where the 3-second rule comes in. A genuine emotional response, whether it's surprise, anger, or sadness, happens almost instantly. The emotion flashes across the face and then fades, all within a few seconds. These are called micro-expressions, and they are incredibly difficult to fake or suppress. Liars, on the other hand, often have a delayed or out-of-sync emotional response. They might hear a shocking piece of information, and their face will show surprise after they've had a chance to process the words, not immediately. Or they might try to fake a certain emotion, and you'll see a smile that doesn't quite reach their eyes, or a frown that seems to be pasted on for too long. The incongruence is the clue. Think about the physiology of it. Your body's response to genuine stimuli is a reflex, a biological reaction that happens before the conscious mind can get in the way. A lie, however, requires cognitive effort. Your brain has to suppress the truth, create a new narrative, and then act it out. This process creates a tiny but crucial delay. So, if you ask someone a question that should trigger an immediate emotional response, and you see that response flash on their face a second or two late, or if their verbal answer and their facial expression don't match up, you've found a crack in their facade. This isn't a hard science, it's a soft art. But once you start looking, you'll see it everywhere. Have you ever seen someone say, "I'm not mad," while their jaw is clenched and their eyes are narrowed? That's the 3-second rule in action, showing you that their true emotional state is overriding their words. Let me share a quick story from my consulting days that puts this all into perspective. I was brought in on a corporate theft case. A valuable prototype laptop went missing from a secure lab. The company had a list of suspects, all of whom had access to the room. I sat down with a woman we'll call Sarah. My job wasn't to badger her, it was to find her baseline. I spent a full 15 minutes talking about her weekend, her new puppy, and her passion for gardening. I noticed that when she was comfortable in telling the truth, she had a habit of nervously twisting a small silver ring on her finger. It was almost constant. When I finally pivoted and asked her, "Sarah, did you take the laptop?" her entire demeanor changed. She became still. The twisting of the ring stopped. Her hands, which had been relaxed in her lap, clenched into fists. Her verbal answer was, "No, of course not," but her body language was screaming otherwise. I didn't have any physical evidence linking her to the crime, but I knew she was my person. I pushed a little harder, not on the laptop, but on the sudden shift in her behavior. I asked her what changed, why she suddenly seemed so tense. Eventually, she broke down and confessed. The lie was never in her words. It was in the sudden, jarring departure from her baseline. This is why you can't just look for a lie, you have to look for the change. So how do you get good at this? You don't need a high-stakes interrogation room. You can practice this every single day. Start with the people you know best, your spouse, your kids, a close friend. Because you know they're normal, you're already halfway there. Play a little game with yourself. While you're having a simple conversation about the weather, a grocery list, or the TV show you watched last night, quietly observe their habits. Do they gesture a lot? Do they fidget with their hair? Do they look at you directly when they speak? Once you have a handle on their truthful state, you'll be much more likely to spot when something is off. For a more practical exercise, try this. Ask a friend or family member a series of simple questions with low stakes. Ask them about their favorite food, their plans for the weekend, or a funny childhood memory. Observe their baseline. Then throw in a curveball. Ask them to invent a totally false story about what they had for breakfast that morning. You'll be amazed at the subtle differences you'll start to see. The hesitation, the change in tone, the sudden stillness. It's like a muscle you need to train, and every conversation is an opportunity for a workout. It's not just a hunch, there's a reason this works. The shift you're looking for is a physical manifestation of a cognitive load. Lying is hard work for the brain. When you tell the truth, you're simply recalling a memory. It's a simple, straightforward process. But when you lie, your brain has to do several things at once. It has to suppress the truth, create a new, plausible story, and then monitor your own behavior to make sure you're selling it convincingly. This takes a lot of mental energy. This increased cognitive load often leaks out into the body in predictable ways. The body's autonomic nervous system, which controls involuntary functions like heart rate and breathing, can go into fight or flight mode. This can lead to subtle signs like increased blinking, a higher pitch in the voice, or a slight rigidity in the posture. The person is literally bracing for impact. So when you see that baseline shift, you're not just seeing a guess, you're observing the physical evidence of a brain working overtime to deceive you. So what's the ultimate goal here? It's not to become a human lie detector that can nail everyone for every tiny fib. That's a fool's errand. The real purpose of this entire exercise is to teach you to trust your instincts. Our subconscious minds pick up on these subtle shifts all the time. That gut feeling you get? It's often your brain recognizing a deviation from the baseline, even if you can't consciously articulate what it is. By deliberately practicing this technique, you're giving your conscious mind the tools to understand what your subconscious already knows. This doesn't make you a cold, calculated manipulator. It makes you a more discerning human being. It empowers you to operate from a place of authenticity and to identify when others aren't. When you can see the truth, you're less likely to be swayed by a false narrative. It gives you an advantage in business negotiations, in family discussions, and in just about every human interaction you can imagine. So let's bring it all back to the beginning. Here are the 3 simple steps to start applying this today. 1. Get the baseline. Before you ask the tough questions, spend a few minutes just talking. Observe their normal, relaxed behavior. 2. Watch for the deviation. Look for the subtle changes. A sudden change in posture, a micro-expression that's out of sync with their words, or the stopping of a normal habit. 3. Trust your instincts. If you see a deviation, that's not proof of a lie. It's an indicator of stress. It's your cue to dig a little deeper, to ask a follow-up question, or to just be more aware. This technique is a powerful tool, but like any tool, it can be misused. Use it to protect yourself and to uncover the truth, not to trap or shame people. Start practicing today. Observe the people around you and see what you can spot. And if you found this useful, subscribe for more insights into the hidden mechanics of human behavior.